Welcome. I'm excited to be here from Oahu. So it's really sunny, so you could probably see it coming in. It's morning, but yeah, it's probably going to be a pretty warm, a little bit breezy summer day. They're kind of like all the same. It's always nice. Woo, brutal. Ah, they cannot hear you. Hmm. Let's see if you can. They can hear me, but just not you. I can hear you. Hmm.
All right, they can probably all hear me now, and I'm just using a less quality mic. There we go. I think that should be it. Ma, thank you for that. I appreciate it. So um, we will just kind of do a quick restart. Welcome and thank you for bearing with me through sound issues again. I'm gonna see if I can probably just edit the front of this post and bring it right up to here. So I think I should be able to do that. We probably will hear from our viewers here in just a moment. Looks like they're catching up. Yep, they can hear us. They can hear us now. Um, and so, Mindy, can I hear you though?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Okay,
Yes.
okay, good. You were just being
Awesome.
quiet and it scared me.
Yeah.
So I am here with Mindi Rosser, and she is a LinkedIn strategist who is coming up with a course to help people build up their LinkedIn profile. And of course, she's going to say it a lot better than I am. And so, Mindy, why don't you tell us a little about yourself and your course and what you're after?
Sure. Yeah, so I specialize in LinkedIn. So I help B2B entrepreneurs, business leaders, professionals who really want to use LinkedIn to scale their impact, grow their businesses, get their next job. So I help them learn how to use LinkedIn in a way that is effective and saves them a lot of time so they're not wasting time trying to figure out what to do. And usually we start with their LinkedIn profile and then building their network. So that journey is really fun for me. It's just helping people have those, I guess, light bulb moments when they finally get it and like, oh, I don't have to spend like hours a day on LinkedIn or post a bunch of things or comment and spend all day in my newsfeed. All I need to do is like my LinkedIn profile and learn how to approach my network strategically. So I think for me, I'm really passionate about taking the knowledge and all of the experience I've had working one-on-one with clients and putting that into a course and into a format that makes sense because for me it's easy to just talk about it and I can go on tangents. I don't come from an educational background, so so I don't have the teaching skills, and for me this is an area I'd really like to develop and help people pick it up faster. So
Yeah.
that's really what I'm here to talk about today, and I'm so excited that you decided to have me on. So
Yeah, thank you so much. I really appreciate that. And I will probably end up learning a lot too, because LinkedIn is that scary social network to me that I'm kind of like, everything else feels a little bit more intuitive, but LinkedIn seems like, ooh, that's people are for real on LinkedIn. um,
People kind of put on their professional hats, and it can feel, I think, a little bit intimidating at first, just trying to figure out like etiquette. It's very different than Instagram or Facebook and what to post. So
yeah. And so you're working on building this course, and where are you in that course building process?
I am about halfway through building the course. So I have the course is 7 modules long, and I'm right
Mhm.
in the middle of module number 4. So it's been I've had so many moments of like, am I doing the right thing? Are people going to get this concept? Am I structuring it correctly? I've watched a lot of videos about frameworks, and then I think, oh, do I need a framework? So I feel like a very a newbie is probably the best way to
Mm,
put it, just at creating the
yeah.
course and really getting my thoughts across.
Yeah, I think that's where a lot of independent course creators are, is we get this, anyone can build a course and there's so much benefit to it, especially if you've been working one-on-one with clients. And it's true, anyone really can. And there's so many resources for selling it and promoting it and the business side of it, but very few people are there to help you once you get going. And so, Mindi, I think it's amazing that you're interested in this now while you're going, because a lot of instructional design is so much easier when you can kind of approach it while you're building it rather than coming back afterwards.
Oh, that's good
Um,
to know.
yes. So what's kind of the first thing on your mind that's really burning at you?
What was really burning at me, which may be a funny place to start, but is PDFs, handouts, and spreadsheets. Like I think the supplemental materials that go along with the course, because I feel very comfortable in front of the camera explaining ideas, but then taking it deeper where people are actually doing the exercises and not overwhelming them with like a really long spreadsheet or overwhelming myself because I'm not great at design. So I'm really struggling with like, what do I give them as extra material and along with the videos?
Yeah, and that's a great question. So how confident do you feel in what they are getting out of the videos? Like, because learning really happens in two stages, is that, and this is very much a simplification of it, but there's this intake. And this is what we get all through primary school and K-12 and even higher ed a lot, is people think learning is basically being exposed to it. But what happens is you got to be exposed, and then you have to actually work with it to truly get it. And so people are like, oh yeah, that makes sense. I watched the video, but then like without the video, they can't go do it. So do you have any like action steps you're calling them to do in the videos, or like, okay, after this video I want you to do these kind of things?
I do. I end every single video with take action now, and here's the next action to take. And my goal is to give them like a spreadsheet or a resource if it's relevant. Some of the stuff they just need to go do on LinkedIn. Other times they really need to sit and work, like you mentioned, like working with the material and figuring some stuff out.
Okay. So what you can do is the spreadsheet or the supplemental materials, I think, kind of come in two different areas. One is, if you're going to, we want to keep those videos short and sweet and to the point. Um, I personally, even in my higher ed, I make my lecture videos really short. I try to keep them under 10 minutes. And I don't go through examples. I don't go through a lot of that kind of stuff. The supplements are there. So when they dive into the practice assignments for that unit or the PowerPoint slides, that's where they're going to see the actual examples of it and like things that they can work with. That way, the video is meant to like introduce the topic, get them the like key bits, and then the like hands-on application parts come in with those videos, so, or with the supplement, so you can expand and go a little deeper. So if there was like a part of the video that you're itching to go deeper on,
Yeah.
that's a perfect spot for a handout or
Okay.
the PDF. So that's one. So like supplementing the videos, going a bit deeper, to that way you keep your videos short and clean and concise.
Okay.
The other one is like practice or action, or really working with what they learned in the video. So
Okay.
an example of this might be, so for me, with my upcoming course where I'm going to be working with people to create accessible content, I'm actually going to give them a piece of inaccessible content, just short and sweet, and ask them to fix it. And my idea with this is, if you were taking my course, for example, and I said, go fix your like downloads, you'd be like, I've got 15 of those. And like, you wouldn't be likely to take action, because that action step would be huge. Whereas if I give you a piece of material that you could just like practice doing the steps on, that would be great. And so what you could maybe do with LinkedIn profiles is, the profile might be huge. And so can you say like, here is one piece that you like, this very small quick win action step to apply what they've learned with each one. Like go to your primary links, or I mean, LinkedIn better than me. So
yeah.
I know there's like a highlighted link, like what's your main hyperlink? Like can you get them to fix
and
that?
Change that simple. Okay. So quick win, super simple that they can do. Okay.
And one of the things that you can do, especially because LinkedIn is a social network, if you're having them practice things like a post or something that like they could tag you in.
It's a great idea. Yeah.
So be like, do this and tag me in it so I can see it. And then you could leave a little bit of a response that gets some action, it gets some connection, gets your eyes on it. And so that's, I think, a fun one to do.
Okay.
So in terms of PDFs, kind of circling back to that original question, is ask yourself, are you trying to supplement the material? And if so, like expanding on it? If so, that's going to kind of be the focus. I know we both were in DCA with Amy, and a lot of hers were that way, right? The video was like a 5-minute thing, but then you open up the PDF and it's this big thing. It actually goes more in depth, gives more examples, more specific, like this is what this script looks like, that kind of thing. So expansion and supplementation, or taking action.
Okay.
And I think I like action steps that are more like action steps, not just like go do this, like actually kind of walk them through, like they're learning it. And so it might be easy to say, hey, go update your profile picture after watching this. And it could be as simple as like an SOP of, okay, go to your profile, click this, upload new photo, tag me in it.
Okay.
That kind of thing. What do you think of that?
Yeah, I think that's very helpful. And I hadn't thought of it. I think what's coming up for me is I made like tech library videos to kind of walk them through the steps. But I think something that I think you've brought it up in the past, is everybody's a different type of learner. So maybe having an SOP that kind of says what I'm saying in the video might be helpful for some people to be able to just see it on paper and walk them through the steps. So that could be something that might be helpful for my learners as well.
Yeah. And if they are someone who just kind of thinking down the road, because I like getting the most out of the content I make, down the road, if they are someone with a VA or someone who is hiring to manage their social profiles, now if they can, those can be swipe files. Swipe my SOP for how to do each of these things on LinkedIn that you could actually send your VA kind of thing.
Okay, I like that.
And so what I really think with lessons is, again, I really encourage you to, and anyone watching, remember learning happens in 2 phases, intake and output. So if you want them to take what they're learning in your course and actually be able to like confidently apply it going forward on the regular, there needs to be some sort of like wrestling out of the brain. And that's where like guided action steps, little challenges, those kind of things can go a long way.
I like that wrestling in the brain. So as somebody who's helping them to learn things, it's kind of walking them through that wrestling because they still have to go through it, but it's just more that we can help them and guide them through that, the better. Yes. Okay.
Yes. Yeah. And
Okay.
it's okay to challenge them. In fact, um, one of the things that like I love seeing is like my students were challenged, but they felt supported. And that's supporting them is arguably the more important part. So it's okay to ask them to do hard things as long as like the support is there. And if you're confident you're giving them the tools to do it,
Mhm.
and like, okay, like I see you, I know it's hard. Learning is hard, right? It's one of the things that people sometimes forget.
Yeah.
Like learning means doing hard things. And so if it's a challenge, that's good, right? Otherwise, if it's so simple, it's really kind of not worth it in a way
Yeah.
is what I like to think of it as. So yeah, absolutely.
That's really helpful. And I think, yeah, just understanding what to do with the lessons. And on that topic, when you are approaching like planning a new course or I'm in the middle of the course, what are some things that you as an educator are thinking about? What are things that I should be thinking about, people that are new to this? As we're planning it, I've looked at some frameworks and I've heard some educators talk about like you should be thinking about the different types of learners, and then like the what, how, why, what if this doesn't work, so, and then there's frameworks. And to me, it does feel a little bit overwhelming just trying to
Mm.
make sure I am addressing all of the needs of all of the learners, and make sure that I'm doing it effectively, especially like first time through. So, what are some things and that I should be thinking about or advice that you would give?
So it's a lot of a mind shift or a mindset shift. Kind of first and foremost, Mindy, is that learning styles is a big myth. There's no
Really? Okay.
research to support learning styles like kinesthetic, auditory, visual. Like higher ed
Yeah.
and the education realm has really kind of been like ugh, and gotten away from that, but it is
Okay.
so like built up in
It is. Yeah.
the independent online course creators because that's how you learn, right? You grew up hearing about these things.
Yes.
And so while the education world has moved on, entrepreneurship is behind on that. And we get this idea of like, how do I meet the needs of all my learners, which is exactly what you're saying. And it sounds overwhelming because everyone learns differently. Um, and the thing is, the simplest way to approach it is you want to just make your materials available in a way that they can engage with it in multiple avenues. So if you need someone, I think you mentioned someone gave you feedback that your speaking style is a little fast for them.
Correct.
But I bet you there's probably someone who says, I want to watch your stuff on 2 times speed. Like you're not going
Yes.
fast enough for me. And that's exactly what it is. So making sure that wherever you're hosting your videos, it has a playback speed operator. It has, because there are some that you've probably encountered these on like different courses or websites where like you can't pause the video, you
Yeah.
can't rewind, you can't speed up. So making sure your video player can handle closed captions, speed, like different speed settings. Um, and I know it might sound rude to just be like, oh, well, you can slow those videos down or you can pause and rewind, but that enables just a good video player like that enables someone who wants to listen to it 2 times fast and then come back to it later, or
Mhm.
maybe they watched it through and didn't want to do it, or someone who needs to go a little slower to do
Mhm.
that. So it's not
Okay.
necessarily that you have to create one version where you're going nice and slow
Yeah.
and you go back and refilm everything like trying to slow down.
Okay.
It's that you just make sure your materials are available to be digested differently. Um, and the media trifecta, as I call it, the video, audio, text, that is going to meet most learners' needs. Um, and the thing is, like, you don't need to be the one necessarily responsible for making sure your PDF will work with this software, this software, this software, and this software. The idea of those softwares is that they should all hopefully be able to use a universal file, and you just need to provide the simple file that can be uploaded to any of those things. And so that's where like making sure images have alternate text, and any video has an audio one and a text transcript. And this could be so for me, like I get distracted very easily, and so I like watching videos with subtitles, because what it does is it occupies a bit more of my attention.
Okay.
I can completely understand the video without it, but the fact that the video also has the subtitles on, kind of, it's coming at me two different ways, and so I stick with it better and I retain it better that way. And so when you do that, it enables people to approach your content in whatever way works best for them, rather than you having to like take into account all of them.
Okay. That makes sense. So and that makes it so much simpler, because it's like, okay, as long as I have like this checklist of things, you know, I've got my video, I've got my audio, my text, I'm helping everyone. And as long as the video player, I think that was a really good tip, because I did go back and think about some courses that I've taken. I'm like, I hate it when I can't pause or change the speed. And I love the captions too, the subtitles, you know, sometimes that can be very helpful. So just taking all of that into account. Okay, that's makes it feel so much less overwhelming. And the fact that learning styles is a myth, because I feel like I use all of them. Like when I read the learning styles, I'm like, well, I use all of that to learn everything. So okay, cool. I think that's very, very helpful in planning. And then on the note of the planning aspect with outlining and planning out the different materials, is there an effective way to kind of, I guess, plan out your materials? And I know that's kind of a broad question, but like from the outline to the slides, or is it a big, really extensive outline? Because I find myself struggling with each module. I do it a little bit differently. Like some of them I did like full on transcripts, and that just took really long. Some of them I tried just like, okay, let me do the slides and I'll just kind of figure it out as I'm talking through the slides. Others I use more of an outline approach. So thoughts on that?
I have two thoughts on that, and one is in terms of how you approach like the actual like meat and potatoes of building your course. You're going to learn, and you're going to figure it out. In terms of like, there are people who, when they do their YouTube videos, they script out every word, and they put a lot of effort into making sure they're reading that teleprompter naturally, and that every word in it is scripted and no one would ever know. And then there are people who film very similar YouTube videos who just have bulleted outlines. They know what they're going to talk about and they wing it. And part of that also comes with the experience. Like in the teaching realm, when I have a new prep, that's one that I'm going to really kind of like pay a bit more attention to, like, okay, what am I going to say where? I need to be careful I'm not putting too much in the slides, so I might need to have like a notes page with it. But like my biomechanics class, I can just talk, right? And I can just wing it. I don't have to plan those out. So you'll figure out what way works best for you in terms of the actual like content and building the content, filming, recording, that kind of stuff. In terms of structuring, I do have very concrete advice there. So in the teaching world, there is something called student learning outcomes or student learning objectives. These are, if you remember back to like high school or university, where you got your syllabus and on the front it's like student learning outcomes, and you probably skipped over to like see what the grades were. They are absolutely one of the most important things for you, the instructor, and even your learners, because our brain learns with structure and scaffolding. So it wants to build these logical structures that fit together. For you, the teacher, you need to know where you're taking your students, right? Like they're hopping on that school bus with you. and you promised them you were taking them somewhere. So that you need to be clear on that, right? Like if I said, I'm going to take my students to Hawaii, you'd probably say, like, what would you say if I was like, oh, I've been to Hawaii, like I'm going out there this year?
Which island? And then each island is different too. So different. So yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So I really love the like Google Maps analogy of where there's 8 different routes to get to your destination, but we have to know the destination. It has to be specific. So what I call these, the way I've translated this into the business world, is I call them your plot points, your primary learning outcomes and transformation. So the big mistake I see people doing with these is people do this in higher ed, is they create like 15 to 20, like, you will learn these, like, this giant list. And there's actually a place for those. And so don't get discouraged with that yet. But what I challenge you to do for the there's one address you're taking your students to when they get on that bus, right? So depending on the size of your course, 3 to 5 is kind of your like sweet spot. If it's a really small course, for example, my crash courses that are coming up, I'm doing like 1 to 2 for each of those crash courses. So as a bundle, it comes out to that 3 to 5 range. But first, very, very specific, and my lights just died. Did I get them back? Oh no. All right. You all can still see me just a little bit.
Yes.
Goodness. Let's see. We'll use the overhead light. All right, let's see. There we go. So 3 to 5 of these, really, really clear. Like, what is the transformation you want your students to get to? And that's where I start. Like, the course promise is kind of the foundation here. What is it they're getting out of it? Because that is your benchmark, that's your lighthouse, that is your reference point for everything else you need to do. And then a popular way to go about it is kind of what's called backwards design, where I think this actually, I'm getting a little bit of interference from my mic. There we go. Backwards design is where we know where we're going, and so we work our way backwards, right? Because it kind of informs the step before it once you know. So like, in order to have mastered their LinkedIn profile, maybe you would be like, okay, you got to have these 5 things. Well, okay, there's like 5 modules, or it kind of informs your steps. And so then you'll kind of have these areas where you'll see these realms come out, right? The 5 areas that you need, or like, based on once knowing that transformation, you will be able to identify these modules or sections. And then I like to have each of those modules to have 1 or 2 plot points.
Oh, okay.
So what is the point of this module? Like, what is the goal? Why are you on this road, right? Like, why is this a part of it? And those tie back. And so when you end up having those 20 different transformations, there's a place for all of them. But if you throw them all at once, like, it gets overwhelming. And so the context of it. So then you might have 1 or 2 learning outcomes. Like, in this module, I really want you to master your bio in LinkedIn. And that might have 4 or 5 things that you want to be in there. And so you kind of see it scaling out. And then I actually go all the way down to, like, in this lesson, here's your goal. So like, they all have a point. We are taking a left turn to get onto this road. So that's how I like to structure. And then it becomes logical, because like, if you take the time to think about the point of every lesson, the point of every video, you're not going to get bloat. Like, it should be leading you to that 3 to 5. And if you had 20 of those things that you're trying to like reference every one of your lessons against, it just becomes too convoluted. So if you have just like a few of them that like you can be like, this is important because I need to get them here, which gets them here. So it keeps everything relevant. It helps you structure that. I know people like the brain dump.
Yeah.
And I think there's definitely a lot of validity in the brain dump in terms of like, you've got it all in there, get it out, and then kind of look at it. But I sometimes feel like the brain dump is like naming all the streets you're going to have to go on to get to your destination. Or like, it's like looking at the trees before seeing the forest. Like, there's a saying kind of like that. And so I like to see the big like skeleton first.
Okay.
Then muscles, then skin, then hair and clothes, right?
Right.
So that's what I'd recommend, is really hone in on those plot points and use those as like your guideposts. Like, if you have to write them on a note card whenever you're doing course design, like everything should come back to those. It's one of the things like I resonate with it in teaching, because I absolutely dread, the worst thing a student could ever tell me is that I give them busy work. That is, if a student ever accuses me of busy work, it's like a knife to the heart. And so I really work hard to make sure all my content is relevant. And when it's relevant, then you're not wasting time on extraneous things and all that kind of stuff.
That makes sense. And I think just thinking of it in terms of, I don't know, something about that example of like getting people from mainland to Hawaii and just, where are you taking them here? You know, something about that resonated with me, and the plot points. It's just like, okay, here, now we go here, now we go here, you know, so just thinking in my brain, I'm like, light bulb moment there. So that was very, very helpful.
Yeah.
Speaking of learning management systems, I know a little bit different, but you said you had some ideas on learning management systems. I am all ears, because it's really something I'm interested in, and I don't want to pick the tool that everybody's using just because everyone's using it. I really want to make sure it helps people learn, and the best platform for the people.
So if you want to choose the best platform for the people, there's not a good answer for that. The answer here for the best learning platform is the one that works best for you, the course facilitator, because the one that you know how to work is, it lowers the friction. So a lot of good teaching is effort, like being connected, going that extra step to making sure you have video, audio, transcripts, right? Making sure that your PDFs are accessible, making sure that like, and if the LMS that you're using, LMS is short for learning management system, but if the LMS you're using like makes it hard to upload those different files right next to the video, then like you're not going to want to do those things. And so I would ask, does it serve your needs in serving your students? Because if it makes it easy for you to serve your students, that's the best choice. And there's a lot that goes into it. Like, I know Thinkific, a lot of people really like Thinkific, and I think Thinkific is the one with all the options. Like, it can do a ton of different things, which is really cool. And I know a lot of course instructors who are into instructional design being like, look, they have these apps that you can like plug and play into your courses, which is awesome. But if you're not there yet, then maybe that's not the best one. You don't want something real convoluted. Maybe you want something that's going to be simple, like, okay, I know exactly how to upload, I know how to do this, I know how to do that, and making the like hosting of it easy is what you're after. So I think important things to look for would be, can it embed videos? Because if it can embed videos, whether its video player is good or not won't matter, because you can always host to YouTube unlisted and just embed it there. And then YouTube can do some closed captioning as well, which is great. So that could kind of help how well it hosts files, and like look at other courses, like look at what it looks like in the course, and even maybe do the 2-week trial and try to like build out your first module in a couple of these. Like if you've got, you know, even a lesson or two. So do the free trial, try to upload my video, try to do this. Is there a comment area for each lesson? That's one that I personally like, because it allows students to ask questions relevant to that and you to respond, and then other people to be able to see and respond to those same questions and same comments on that video. Whereas if that was hosted elsewhere in like the weekly live session on Facebook or posted in the group, so there's that. Does it offer a community type thing? And community is kind of a harder one. A lot of places don't offer a good community build depending on how you're doing it. I like Circle is a membership site, but it does really great stuff for community building and being like an app off side where you can host a lot of stuff. But it is more kind of like a community manager than a learning management system. Really, what you're doing is hosting files. So I've seen people basically do it all through Google Drive in a Facebook group.
Really?
Like you give them access to the videos in the Google Drive and the PDFs, and you tell them to go through. Like, so affordability is a thing. Like, I know Kajabi is really expensive, and I know it's like an all-in-one, but at the same time, Podia is kind of an all-in-one that is like $35 a month comparatively. Like I use Podia. I absolutely love Podia. One of the ones I'm most excited for is Experienceify, which is kind of it's a mouthful, but what Experienceify does really well is, so far, ease of use has been pretty good. Like I said, I'm kind of experimenting with it myself for the first time behind the scenes and considering moving all my courses over. So it seems pretty easy to navigate and build and that sort of thing. I haven't tried making sales pages on it yet. So that we'll see how that goes. But one of the things they do better than a lot of the ones I've seen is they take a lot of things that would normally be really good parts of teaching that are hard to do. So like if a student hasn't accessed your course in a while, you want to reach out to them, you want to check into them. And that could be a lot of manual behind the scenes stuff. They have automation for that, which is really cool. They have automation for like students hitting milestones. It'll like create a like celebration announcement in your Facebook group when they automatically do that going through the course. So it's like, Mindi just completed module 5 and posted, and like it automatically posts that in the Facebook group, which I think is really cool. It does a lot of gamification, which I worry. There's some things like it has like a countdown timer, which adds a time element, but I'm not 100% positive if you can remove that countdown timer, because I don't think there's a case for when to use it. So it has a lot of really pretty features and a lot that are really grounded in good learning theory, but that could be abused and take away from the course experience that you're after. But it's definitely worth checking out. It's pretty affordable too in terms of a monthly basis kind of thing. But like Podia, for me, it allows me to manage my email list, build my website, host it, create course sales pages, which is important for me because I don't know how to, I don't want to learn WordPress yet and build out all of that and these kind of things. It was really a nice all-in-one solution. So I would look them over. If you kind of have what a module looks like in mind, do the free trial. Almost every one of them has some sort of free trial. Try building in it for a week and see how it goes. But really the biggest thing is, does it allow you to serve your students better? Like, does it make it easy for you to host and serve and run the course? And that's the one you want to choose.
Okay. That's helpful.
So I wouldn't overthink it.
Okay. So don't overthink it. Go what's easy to use. Okay. And take it
Yes.
from there. Okay. Very helpful.
Yeah.
What do like the program design and I guess the content creation, and how does one go about doing that effectively when you're sitting down like, okay, I have a course or a module or a lesson to create? Do you, I mean, like even to the things of being productive during that time, getting your head in the right space, is there a way to approach it in a way that, like, if my mindset is right, this will be productive and I will get the right things down? And just like, how do you go about content creation? Because it feels very different for me to do like the course content than marketing. Marketing stuff I feel really comfortable with. I'm like, I could do that in my sleep. But for me, like the education part, it's I'm still developing those muscles, I think. So thoughts on that?
Yeah. For me, it really kind of comes down to, I need uninterrupted focus time personally. Especially with content, because I feel like what you need to do is really need to like make sure you're being logical. You need to be able to see the whole picture, reference it. So like mind mapping or content mapping or course mapping is a really powerful way to go about that, right? You know your endpoint. And then so like, what are the steps under that? What are the steps under that? Kind of like that flow chart is a good way to go about that. And then I would just, if you've got that structure down, if you know what the skeleton looks like, it's a lot easier. You can start with module 1 and say like, okay, my goal is to get them this in this module. So like, how am I going to do that? And then you can start getting creative, because now you're focused on one specific piece. And I just challenge everyone watching, and I challenge you, Mindi, to try to be different on that. And that's one of the things like I really want to do with my courses is I want my courses to be something that people have never seen before. And I absolutely love when my students say like, they never knew what to expect every day.
Really?
Like every day of the week. And it's not that, I mean, I still had videos and I still had PowerPoints and I still did that, but the conversations you have, sometimes it's just the like how you supplement those primary learning materials is what makes all the difference. And so one of the areas that I am experimenting with, trying to figure out what works in business versus education, is how active can I get my students to be? And maybe that's just, hey, if you're signing up for Dustin, like we're going to work together, and I'm not just going to like leave you hanging. And so I want to do like implementation sessions. So you can watch the video, you can grab the PDF, and you can go try to do it on your own. Or instead of the like live Q&A that everyone does in their Facebook group, which is great, like live Q&As are important, but let's do an implementation session where like, hey, this week we are sitting down and I'm going to do it with you. So like, we are going to do the task. And then if you have those little like tiny tasks that you have them do, like I give them a piece of content and I ask them to go do that. I can do that with them, and I can show myself working on that piece of content, and they can follow along and ask questions as they go. And sometimes, especially when you're starting out, you are like learning, there's just pieces you miss. Like, it doesn't matter how good of a teacher you are. In fact, the more you know your subject, the more pieces you're going to miss because of the expert's paradox. And so if you're sitting working with it through them, you're going to see the questions they have live. And you're going to be like, I really didn't explain this very well.
Yeah.
Like that happens. That really does happen there. And that's what I know which ones I need to go back and fix. And that's where you also lose students, is they hit something that maybe you just didn't teach it well and it just wasn't getting, and they feel like they have to get over that hurdle. But if you're like they're working live with them and doing it live, and we have 4 viewers for this right now, so which is the highest like concurrent. So you all watching, this is important. Like get in there, especially you can do this with a big group. Like if you've got 80 to 100 people in your course, or you can do a live implementation session and then just watching you go through it, talking, you can watch the comments and be like, oh, wait, how did you do that? And what you'll be watching for is not so much like, wait, which button did you click? But the like, I don't understand why we're doing this. Like, why am I putting this here? Those are like the good ones that you'll miss. There's a learner's paradox. Like what is easy for you on LinkedIn is probably completely foreign to some of your students. And so I challenge you all to just get away from that 5 minutes of a talking head and a PDF handout for every lesson. Like maybe that is how you like, that is what people expect, but like, can you put a twist on it? Can you like, what do your frills look like? What's the, what sets it apart? Like that's your base, but that's your body. What clothes is it wearing? Like, what's its style? And so like things like implementation sessions, like practice things. And obviously if you call it like homework or stuff, like people are gonna, I don't want the homework, but be like, if you want to try this out, and people, you're trying to teach people big things is I think one of the biggest things I see people make, and it becomes overwhelming to take action on it. So how can you give them the like quick win action step that gets them to doing it on their own content, which is what I'm really trying to think of, like for creating accessible content. They're like, how do I make this course completely accessible? Well, like, let's start with this paragraph and like, get you there.
That is really helpful, because I think how I felt in creating the material, I feel like it lacks, up to this point, it lacks my personality. And I feel like I'm just following a format that, I feel like I want to change things up, but I'm like, I don't want to do it wrong, and I'm like, well, if I just do what's expected, I can always change it later. But I think the freedom to explore and really think about what would be helpful for people, I think just I'm like, okay, I can dive into that and really make it interesting. When it comes to the lessons, do they all have to follow the same format? If I do change it, they don't. Okay, because I was sticking to it, and I'm like, I think for this module, it actually would be better if I was doing more screen sharing and such. So, okay, you're nodding your head.
So what I would say there is absolutely teach it in the way that works. So like if approaching a topic a little bit of a different way for a certain module is important, do that, but be transparent. And it's not like you're trying to hide it, but we want to set context. And there's something to be said for like, if every module is a similar format, like I like to have in my like university classes what I call a weekly rhythm. And so this is like, students expect that there's going to be some amount of videos to watch, there's going to be some amount of assignments, there's going to be a lab. Like they kind of have this rhythm of what to expect, like what are those big things we're doing, but I can change how I'm doing those big things. Like this is, you have 2 assignments, but this assignment might look really different than this assignment. And these videos might be, so you could kind of think of like a rhythm or like a module type rhythm in terms of like, they're going to have similar type stuff, like a video to watch, but maybe that video is a screen share, screen flow kind of thing that you're saying. And maybe one is talking through, and maybe one is touring really effective ones. So like, or like this person does it really great, and you can kind of look and talk through some of that. So again, like think about it, like the body should look the same, right? You want the body look kind of similar, but what's that body style? What clothes are they wearing? Like change up some of that stuff. And again, I think transparency is really important. So I say go big and be like, I'm not going to teach this course like all the other courses out there. And I encourage you all to do this. Like I've joked that I had a conversation with another course creator who said, back in 2001, there was an app for that. Well, now there's a course for that. And Forbes is saying the online independent course business is like going to be one of the biggest in like by 2025, like oh man, $35 billion of revenue or something like wild. And so everyone is building courses. Like make yours different. Don't be the same. Like, I saw people being like, my new favorite pastime of the pandemic is enrolling in courses that I never opened. Like, I want to be different. And I from my teaching experience in higher ed, I don't think that's bad advice. My gut says being different and standing out as someone who serves your course up differently is what's going to benefit you. But you also have to make them aware of that. Like the context, like, hey, this is what it's going to look like to be in my course, and do it from an exciting way. Like, you don't have to be like, hey, just a heads up, just a warning. Be like, hey, in this course, you're actually going to get to see me do, like, we're going to do live implementation sessions every week where I sit down and I work through the content with you in doing this. And people are like, oh, like that's different. Who else is doing like, so you're telling them what it's going to look like. You're telling them that it's different, but you're also doing it in a way that like, why are you doing this? Why are we taking the highway instead of the side street? Right. So communicating those things gives students context for what they're doing and sets them up for success.
Okay. That's exciting to me. I think that just like got me excited because I'm sitting down, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna do this the same way. And just I think the freedom to express things, but then communicate, be transparent, and really find it's just like marketing where you kind of find your voice and you want it to be different. So the same applies to teaching and courses, which makes sense.
Yeah. And I mean, Mindi, you're teaching LinkedIn, and there's a lot of people teaching LinkedIn.
There are, yeah.
So what about, and like you've always got your surfboard, like even in the preview that we did, you showed me the preview of the like business box, like, and you had it all laid out, and there was your surfboard, and here was the box, like on your bed, and I'm like, all right, so like lean into that stuff. Be wild. Like, I don't know, like do Surfside chats, take your camera out on a lanyard and like film a reel teaching something about LinkedIn from your board, like out in the water. I think that kind of stuff is absolutely okay. And it keeps people engaged and interested. And I think it's going to be very easy for people to get lost in the sea of courses, especially as things come up, and courses that aren't taught effectively are going to just be like, people are going to realize it pretty quick, I think.
Okay.
So have fun with it. Be different.
Okay. Do that.
So I know we're running close on time, and I want to respect your time. But is there anything else burning? Any other questions?
Covered like a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
One other thing, feedback. You do with feedback on your course, and like maybe you can touch on it quickly. When you get feedback, like do you incorporate it right away? Do you kind of analyze it a little more? Like what do you do with feedback?
So it kind of, the thing about feedback is I'm just checking Instagram because I put out a call to see if anyone had questions for you to send me a DM, but I didn't see any. So if anyone is in the audience, they have questions for me or Mindi, you can write those in the chat. And Miss Kaylin Clifford, who is actually my wife, has a question, so or a comment. Kaylin, I appreciate you so much. But sorry, I got derailed. Ask that one more time for me.
What do you do
feedback. Yes. One of the things, especially if you're building as you're going, I think it's okay to send a like mid course email blast, even if you've taught it a lot. Like every year I've taught my biomechanics class for almost 10 years now. And every semester, so that's 20 semesters, I ask them to do a little survey after one of their tests to say like, hey, what's working, hey, what's not. And the more you teach your course and even the more familiar with it you become, you're going to find that different cohorts are going to respond better to different things. Like your spring group who enrolls in your course might, like, just by the odds of it, respond better to certain ways of teaching than other things, or your life may vary and you need to like figure that out. And so it's okay to ask for feedback. So I would send an email blast out and just be like, hey, I wanted to check in, see how things are going. You could ask them to be like, what's been most effective? What's not been effective? What have you learned the most from? Or what do you wish we did more of? Things like that you can ask. So you get kind of some mid-course and then iterate on it. Like that makes, when they see you actually respond to feedback, that especially, I think it's going to have even a more profound effect in this business world where like you think you're buying this prepackaged thing and it's just going to be like you go through and they humor you by showing up to like some Q&As. But like if you actually change something based on like someone, they're like, oh, like this is real, like she's here with us, she is doing this with us. And so there's that. And then at the end, obviously we want testimonials and things like that, but I am a really firm believer in giving your students a chance to give anonymous feedback, which is so scary, right? It's like, whew. But the thing about giving them a chance to give anonymous feedback is they're going to be honest.
Yep.
They're going to be more honest, which that's the scary part, right? But the thing is, that is where you learn like what is really working and what isn't. And it's okay to prime them for that. A lot of people think it's like not okay to coach them through how to give good feedback. Like I like to tell my students at the end of the semester, I'm like, hey, I really appreciate it when you fill out this survey to like, let me know what things are doing. I joke with them. I'm like, you can say, I fucking hate Dustin, but why do you hate Dustin? Like that tells me, that gives me something to work with. And they all laugh and they joke. But I'm like, you know, here are things that like, what's going well? Like constructive feedback tends to be negative. So like, don't just tell me like what can be improved, but also what worked really well for you, like so that I make sure I don't take that out accidentally. So I think even potentially 2 surveys is a couple of things. So a mid course, an after course, and then a like after course. This is one that I've never seen anyone do. Give them a 6-month survey or a 3-month survey, or be like, hey, I just wanted to check back in with you. You've had this course. It's been 6 months since we wrapped it up. I want to know, like, how has your success on LinkedIn been? And it could just be short in an email blast. But then you could kind of see the long-term effects, or they'll be like, you know, I finally had time to finish it. Some people might not finish it on time and other questions may have come up, and they will appreciate that you were like asking a little bit later. So I like the combo, the mid, the end, and the like after. And I encourage, you can make the like name field optional. So if they want to include it, they can, but otherwise, like, don't collect the emails, don't collect unless they want to do that. And you're just going to get better feedback that way. And better feedback allows you to improve your course. So like you might have to be a little thick skinned and kind of get, you know, ready, but just remember, like, that's what's going to help you improve your course and like iterate on it. Another thing that I don't see people doing a lot is if you have the chance to actually kind of like prime them for learning before the course starts. So between like the time they buy and the course start, Mindi, one thing you can do is be like, is there someone's LinkedIn account who you think is just amazing? So like it gets them kind of thinking about like, oh, what do I like seeing in a LinkedIn account? What does work? And ask them, be like, what's the best LinkedIn account you've seen? What's the worst? And it kind of gets them thinking and gives you feedback of like, oh, wow, a lot of people are seeing that they're saying this and want to know how to do that. And so I can include that. And then they're like, and then what you can do even is midway through, you can reference those. So you could use it as an example. So you could say like, we have a guest here. Yeah, what's up, Boone? Your other bottle of water. Oh. He made a mess of it. Okay, well, Daddy's almost done. You want to hop in and say hi since you're here? Hop in and say hi to the world. All right, I'll be out in just a moment. All right, lady. All right, team.
The family pops in.
We'll get you another. I think he might want another sparkling water, Seth. He said that Bowden made a mess of his. Seth, do you want to come grab him? I'm still live. Just 1 second.
One of lives.
Sorry
like,
about that.
Like real life and family. My kids sometimes will start running back here or start like beating on the window, like.
Yeah, it's part of working from home and that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's one of the things. What I was saying is one of the things that I'm excited to do with mine that I don't see people do is actually kind of like these pre-course, like what are you going to do with them from the time they enroll to the time? And some people like to have like modules and stuff up or like go introduce yourself into Facebook, but like you can prime them for your material and give yourself some like cool stuff to like do midway through. So for me, I want to ask them like, what was the most effective like class you ever had? And then when we're talking about that kind of stuff, I could reference like this person had this, or like here's some examples that you all said, and like share those things. And you can keep them anonymous, but then they're like, oh wow, like Mindi looked at that and she's taking my personal like connection to this content and actually applying it to her content, which gets them involved and helps with the learning. So you can do stuff like that. Like what would you want your dream LinkedIn account to do for you? Or like, what would it look like for you to succeed with your account? Like, does that mean you're making 5 connections a week? Does that mean like what are the success markers like? And you could ask them like, what does their vision of success in your course look like?
Good one.
And then that also helps you tailor your like, ooh, okay, a lot of people want to see this and I didn't even think about that. So you can get that information before the start of the course and then peel it in.
Stuff. I love that. Yeah, I've got like sticky notes all over my desk.
I love it. Thank you, Mindi. I absolutely love talking about this kind of stuff. And I really appreciate that you gave me the chance to, and hopefully some of it will be helpful for you.
Definitely. I'm like all excited now, and I'm working on module 4 later today. So I'm like, I'll be all psyched after this.
There you go. Have fun with it and just, make it your own because it is your own.
Will do. Will do. Thank you so much, Dustin.
All right. Yeah. Thank you all for watching and being live. And we are going to wrap up now. Have a good day, y'all. Oh, before we leave, all of Mindi's links and everything are in the description. So if you want to find Mindi, connect with her. Mindi, do you have anything that you want them to specifically check out?
If they are interested in LinkedIn profiles, I'll give you the link for the LinkedIn profile. I have a free training for that. And if you want to get started and check out my teaching style, you can see those.
I want to tell you all that not many course instructors are out there investing in how to better teach their course. So the fact that Mindi is here doing that someone to watch out for. So thank you all. We'll see you next time.